Hi, and welcome to All the Woo A to Z. We're your hosts, Suzanne
and Mychal, and this is Season 2.
Hi, I'm Suzanne, and I am on the floor part of the project at my parents' house.
That sounds very exciting.
Groundbreaking.
That's a Mychal right there. Okay. And I'm Mychal, and I am preparing to get back on the road again. And this is All the Woo.
A to Z.
And this is you for...
Mychal's favorite people, the UFOs.
Yay!
Who have, 5 different acronyms now. But yes, we're talking aliens, and she is super happy.
Yes. So we ask you to please join us at our non-judgmental table where we share our own experiences and understandings on these topics and hope that at the very least you are entertained.
Yep.
Yep.
What are we drinking to go with our aliens?
So we are going to do a sake. Yay! And okay, so the sake that we were having is called Yuho, and this is a Junmai, and it's specifically the other name for it is called Eternal Embers. So this is different than if you have just gone to an Asian restaurant and ordered hot sake. You may know that there's other forms of higher end sakes other than that. So really that kind of warm sake, which there's nothing wrong with it. It just is more kind of everyday.
It's the Chianti of the sake world.
Well.
Oh, I got that wrong. Never mind.
Because there's high end Chiantis as well. Yes.
Yep. I knew the analogy was not going to pass.
There are more refined versions of sake, let's put it that way. And the majority of them are served cold, some are room temperature, and some are hot, but fewer are hot than you might think. Anyway, all of this to say, the reason why I'm picking Yuho as being the pairing for this, because it is a chilled sake, and it is a bigger, richer style. It is actually a little bit unique because you can pair it with things like steak, which you don't necessarily think about pairing sake with. Yes, exactly. But it works. Believe me, it works in a great way, in a completely different way than how wine works.
Gentle listener, we are not eating steaks while we are
not
drinking our sake and talking about UFOs.
Yeah, but it's an awesome experience. I highly recommend it, especially with this one. So the brewer for this is a female brewer, and she actually really likes that pairing. So the sakes that she makes are for that purpose, that you can enjoy it with a steak, and that's awesome. But the connection here with UFOs specifically is, if I remember correctly, if my memory serves me right,
her memory is going to serve her right, y'all.
Yuho actually translates to something like UFO in Japanese.
Gotcha.
And the reason why the sake is called Yuho is because it is a UFO hotspot. As I do my little dance.
She's smiling and she's dancing.
Yes, UFO hotspots. So there we go. That's why we're having sake today.
The Yuho.
The Yuho.
So, y'all, basically, I'm just going to be asking Mychal questions because I am not the one who has the level of expertise or experience when it comes to others in the universe. And so, Mychal, what is your take on the newest developments in the UFO? Were you saying they're sometimes called the YAPs now?
UAPs.
UAPs
is now like the new terminology.
Gotcha.
But so as we discussed before, there's congressional hearings about it, and
those last summer.
Yeah, those were last summer, and then they happened again. There was a second series of them that happened, although they weren't
with the current administration.
It was actually right before.
Okay.
Right before. So right before before the end of 2024 is when that happened. Okay. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, it was an extension of the previous time, and maybe just thought that it was all one. In case you haven't noticed, there's been a lot of things kind of going on in the world right now. And I think people are not really paying attention to UFOs. I think it's the least of their worries at this moment.
I think there's, some people who are like, please, y'all, come on.
Yeah.
been threatening, have been teasing. Come on. Is it from the ocean? Is it from the sky? Is it both? We don't care. Just come on.
I'm sure there's all levels there.
I'm sure there's mountaintops where people are walking around, in their togas with their signs saying,
Yeah.
beam us up now.
But then there's also been a string, and this also was more relevant before 2025 began, that there was all these drone sightings. And being in the United States, we mostly heard about drones being sighted in New Jersey, and some that were being sighted in Long Island, some others in Southern California. Those were really
Most
kind
of them outside of bases.
Right, exactly. There was also a lot of other countries that experienced this too. So the United Kingdom, Australia.
Were they also outside of bases, or
They
were
were.
they? Okay.
And specifically bases where there's speculation of whether or not there's nuclear bombs being held there. Also in Europe, same deal, specifically in Germany, I think, and then Asia too. So not only China, but Japan, I think Russia also.
So if someone were to make a story of this, it could be that our benevolent overlords are coming and standing there in the sky with their arms crossed going, don't do it.
Don't use them.
Don't.
You could see it that way. And I know that a lot of people just thought, okay, drones, so it's not a UFO, it's not alien, because these are Earth crafts. And I would say that some of them probably are Earth crafts. I don't think that all of them were, and especially if you're thinking that these are just hobbyists. Okay, so hobbyists all around the world. And plus, then you have people who are hobbyists who do this, and even people who are familiar with FAA aircraft and all the different regulations for lighting, who have commented on the lighting of these
as not up to regulation.
Correct. And what they were doing, how they were moving. Also that there's no sound necessarily associated with as being a signature of even propellers. There have been a lot of things.
It really makes it seem like it can't be a drone because those things are loud.
Right. And I would say, I mean, you can argue that if they're so high, you're probably not going to hear it. Right. Yeah. And the size of them, too, is not the size of a normal drone. So people were thinking, okay, well, maybe it's military, which, okay, I'm willing to bring that into the fold of possibilities. And not to say that some of them aren't that. I would probably venture to guess that plenty of military groups took advantage of the fact that there was lots of things going on and saying, okay, well, we'll fit some in too, and nobody's going to really, you can't pin it on us, right? And some of them definitely had pictures where, yes, it was solid aircraft, it was definitely human-made. I don't think that all of them were that, because some of the sightings too were orbs that were in the sky that would transform in shape. There's a lot of other things that raised a lot of questions about where they were, what they were doing, how often they were showing up.
So it's more unexplained flying objects.
Yes. I would also say, though, there was a series of psychic mediums, people who channel extraterrestrials, who had made comment right before this happened, before it started, that
we were going to get a drive-by.
Yes, that we were going to see a lot of things in the sky, essentially. And I think we're even due for something else that's supposed to be hanging off the coast, off of California, that'll hang out there for a while, mostly to make itself known, to kind of gradually open people up to this idea of something else that we don't know that's in the sky, and also that it's not attacking us, right? That we don't have this Mars attacks idea connected with this, that they have to show us again and again, hey, we're here. Also noticed we didn't do anything to you. Yes.
Even though we could have.
Right. Exactly. Because, I mean, if you think about it, they got here after so many light years away. They got here. They had the technology to do that. And I would venture to say their technology probably is a little better than ours in a lot of ways, and probably could overrun a lot of our technology quite easily. I don't think there would be too much of a fight there. I mean, there's even, so back in the 1940s, 30s, 40s, there was that UFO over Hollywood or LA where there's imagery photographs of a UFO up in the sky. Our military claimed it as a foreign aircraft. They didn't know where it came from. It looks like a flying saucer.
Mm-hmm.
And they were hurtling bombs at it, trying to shoot it out of the air, and it didn't even hurt it one bit. And eventually it just flew away unscarred by the whole situation.
Now, the crazy alien story that I can think of is the one where a woman was like, and this is where Ghostbusters got the idea, I think, of she was basically like sucked out of her bedroom in the middle of the day from the 19th floor or something and just went up in the air and was never seen again. And there were all kinds of eyewitnesses, although I do have a theory about eyewitnesses. But yeah, that was just kind of like, what?
I think that the one that you're referring to is the one that happened in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the eyewitnesses was a foreign dignitary who saw it happen.
Yes.
And she did come back. She wasn't gone for forever. But there was, and I think it did happen at night, but still so many people saw that happen that it's worth questioning, especially people who don't know each other. So this wasn't a collaboration. There have been investigations into this. And I know that people will argue, well, they have proven that to be a fraud. Yeah. I also think that there's enough evidence to show that's also really unusual, especially in New York City, to have that many people see something like that. It's kind of hard to refute. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm open about whatever happened there personally.
And so have you had any personal updates on alien interactions on the UFOs?
I have not had any new instances, I will say that. But what I have had is some new realizations, which your husband actually helped me go, oh yeah, connect the dots. And I don't know why I didn't see this before. So I'm going to also show how it relates to one of my other actually seeing a UFO stories, which in our last extraterrestrials, I think I just touched on, but I don't think I really got into them too much. So I'm going to go into detail on one of them.
As Mychal has reminded me this evening, she is not, quote unquote, allowed to do much alien stuff on the podcast.
And that's because Suzanne doesn't like me talking about it that much.
It's when you get really detailed about creatures being in your house that you didn't invite.
It freaks Suzanne out.
Get my boundary sort of territorialism. I can feel all of that Scottish ancestry of just being like, get off my land.
Okay, so where should we start first? Maybe with the realization and then how this relates to the other story. Okay, so the realization was a number of years ago, I was living with a boyfriend of mine, and at that time there was a lot of kind of weird alien-like interactions, and which we'll get into at another time.
I don't feel like that is as defining as you think it is.
I know. And that's the story. No, just kidding. But I'm going to refer to one particular part that happened there. And one night, going to bed, he had already gone to bed. He was asleep. I got into bed. I did my meditation before bed, and then I went to sleep. As soon as I was done with my meditation, rolled over and started to actually fall asleep, all of a sudden, what I thought was the fire alarm in the house or the smoke detector went off. And it was so loud.
Those things are always, just absolutely terrifying.
And it wasn't just the beep telling you that
it was the full on, it's over.
Something's on fire telling you, right? Like that was the sound, at least so I thought at the time. I got up and I went to go shut it off. It was right in the hallway, directly outside the bedroom door on the wall. And so I even took it off the wall. I took out the battery, it's still going. Couldn't get it to stop. And then eventually it just stopped, which my heart rate was going. I was pretty jarred at the time, and
you could fly from adrenaline.
Right, I could. And then I got back into bed. He's still sound asleep, hasn't moved at all. And I eventually kind of shake him awake after all this.
He's alive.
Yeah, and he wakes up, and I was like, "Didn't you hear that?" He didn't hear it at all. He didn't hear any kind of sound. He wasn't bothered by anything. I was just amazed. How can you sleep through that level of sound? It was so loud. That's amazing. He wasn't that much of a deep sleeper also. Let's point that out. And it's something that I always thought was kind of weird, but the realization that came to mind, I always thought that there was something weird about that. But I was talking about that with you and with your husband. And in it,
who is a very Occam's razor kind of guy.
He is. And he's also familiar with what those kinds of alarms sound like, too. Yeah. So he pointed out to me through some line of questioning, because I did point out that the alarm also didn't sound like any other smoke alarm I've ever heard before when I've heard one go off. It had a very different sound. It was equally as loud, but it was a strange sound, and it never made that sound again, which I thought was strange. So when he was asking questions about, okay, when you tried to turn it off or you took out the battery or all these different...
Which is hilarious because we've had experiences where the smoke alarm in a house that we're not in is going off.
Right.
And taking them out and taking the batteries off, and the thing is still going off. And it's like,
how is this happening? Yeah, everybody wants to know. It's like the Friends episode with Phoebe, and it's still going off, but hers is just the beep, and she can't get it to stop. She ends up throwing it down the trash chute, I think, and it comes back to her because they find it in the trash, and it's illegal to throw it out. It's like that.
Such a true story.
Yes, very true. So I didn't think that strangely of it for that reason, because we've all had that experience before. And so he pointed out to me, do you think that perhaps it wasn't the smoke alarm and that perhaps it was something else causing the alarm for you to wake up and get up? And I didn't realize, I didn't think that it could be something else making the alarm.
Mm-hmm.
And important to know,
you did say they have good technology.
They do. My boyfriend at the time had not, like I said, woken up or been roused by it in any way. So, which leads me to another experience that I had where I kind of briefly touched on it. And again, I'm going to tell this story. And if I've told it in detail before, I'm sorry, stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the first times that I'd actually seen a UFO, at least that I knew that that's what it was. I went through all deducing down other possibilities. And I was moving from Texas to Arizona. My dad was helping me drive the U-Haul truck across. It was late at night. It was my turn to drive. And driving, I think we were somewhere right before we got to El Paso. So right in that no man's land in Texas where there's nothing to be around
just
you.
Really big sky.
Right. And just farmland. And so at night it's pitch black. And there was like 2 cars in front of me, and not super up close, but enough. And I started to see what looked like planes. That's the only thing that I thought of at the time. And I had some time to drive up to it because it was passing over the road. And then it would come back and pass over again. And I was thinking, okay, well, first of all, assuming that it's a plane because there's a light and it's in the sky and it's going back and forth. It was kind of low, so I thought maybe it's a small
prop plane or something.
Yeah, single propeller plane that farms use for spraying crops, because that wouldn't be unusual. I was thinking, okay, that could be a possibility. But it's still really, really low to the ground considering that that's the case. But that's the closest thing that I could kind of come up with. And I also couldn't see the shape of the aircraft at the time. All I saw was the light, and it was a single light. And it wasn't blinking. There's no FAA blinking lights to it, just a single light. And it went across, and then it would come back again, and it kept on crossing the road again and again and again.
A white light?
A white light.
Okay.
And then I realized, oh, no, it's not one craft that's doing this. It's 3 crafts. There was 3 of them that were doing this zigzag crossing across the road. And as I was getting closer,
Send a listener, my palms are getting wet just sitting here.
And Suzanne's even heard this story before. So there you go. Sorry.
Not in this kind of detail.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
So as I'm driving, I want to make sure that I can see the outline of the aircraft is this a plane? I want to make sure that this is a plane.
Might not to be crashed on. Yeah.
Yeah, like what is this thing? It seems a little dangerous what's going on. And so driving, looking at it, going on, and the outline of the plane, like I said, I couldn't see, but then I started to try and pay attention. Okay, can I hear something? Because planes like that are very loud.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were getting closer and closer, I couldn't hear anything. And then it comes to, we're basically under them. Not basically, we are. We are under them. The light is crossing up above. And as I was looking through the windshield up at the shape of the aircraft, all I could see was like a triangle shape. But even at that, it was just a black triangle shape. And that was it, with the single light down at the bottom. And that's what was crisscrossing the road. I was thinking, first of all, do the people in front of me see this? Because they also drove under these crafts, but they didn't stop. They didn't do anything, which I thought was really weird. And like I said, my dad was in the seat next to me, and my dad has been known to sit out on the patio and try to look for UFOs in the past. So I know that he'd be super into this and want to be interested in looking at it too. So I tried, he was sleeping in the passenger seat. And so I was shaking him, yelling, Dad, wake up. You got to look at this. Look at it. And I'm looking at the same time, trying to get him to wake up. And it wasn't until we were all the way past and you couldn't see it anymore from where we were on the road that he finally woke up. And again, you didn't hear me trying to wake you up. You just missed it. I'm like, there was UFOs, Dad. You missed the UFOs. And to this day, when I've mentioned the story to him, only recently has he brought up to me, you know what's strange? No. I can never sleep. And this is my dad. Quote, my dad. I can never sleep in a car when somebody else is driving. I've never done that before. So the fact that I was asleep is really strange. That's actually the thing that weirds my dad out about my story, because he has no memory of ever falling asleep in a car with somebody else ever before. And
now I'm going to say, like my favorite alien, the Doctor, there's a character who had an incredible, me and hitting this microphone, who had an incredible involved life. And the whole thing was, if she remembered it, she would explode. And so everything supernatural, everything that would happen, alien invasion, they had some serious alien invasions, alien invasions, people turning into dinosaurs or crickets or whatever it was. She would just almost miss it. She'd be taking a nap, or she'd be in another room while it was on TV or whatever. She was always like, I'm just always missing this.
Yes.
Or she wouldn't believe anybody. I wonder if your dad has actually been a traveler.
Perhaps.
And he can't remember, or his head would explode.
Maybe. I don't know. But what I can say is that when I've been in situations when there have been, first of all, other cars involved, nobody ever pulls over or stops, or I can't see any kind of rubbernecking that's happening looking at the same thing that I am.
No brake lights.
No brake lights, which amazes me because it is so close. How could you miss that? It's kind of strange.
So is it, obviously this is possible, but that you are kind of on your own little personal Mychal freeway, bending out of the normal space-time continuum to just, for them to wave at you as you go by?
You mean like slipping into another dimension?
Yeah.
Potentially. That could be an option. And also that I've had multiple situations where somebody's totally slept through something.
Yeah.
That's really unusual. Even though I try to wake them up during, and I actually kind of get upset that they don't. Like, I was definitely kind of upset with my boyfriend at the time for not waking up. You're making me deal with this alarm thing on my own. You're just dead to the world. Really? And then they come to realize, hey, maybe they're not supposed to get or be awake. Like, there's that possibility as well.
So there's a Bible story of trying to get the prophets right. There was Elijah and Elisha. And one of them was kind of the serving boy of the great prophet.
Mhm.
And so he was laying in bed at night and he heard, Elisha,
Mhm.
come, wake up, come serve me, something like that.
Mhm.
And so he ran in and was like, Master, what do you need? And he's like, I didn't call you. So this happens 3 times. And finally the prophet's like, you know what? I didn't do this. So maybe you should say, here I am, Lord, send me, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that was sort of the calling. So it makes me wonder, are these all callings? And they're just waiting for you to.
I mean, they need to say something more than just flying around, if that's the case. We need some kind of interaction, which the closest interaction was in Egypt. And we're getting a little long in our episode right now for me to tell what exactly happened in that story. However,
Maybe a bonus episode, y'all.
maybe. Yeah, they need to participate a little bit more then, if that's the case. That's all I have to say.
All right, y'all. Well, this was an exciting episode, at least for me. I think I'm a little bit fear-soaked.
Sorry, it is warm in here too.
Sure. What is our next letter?
That is an excellent question. Our next letter is V.
V?
V as in Victor.
It's not going to be Victor, y'all. Great. Then we will see y'all next time
On All the Woo.
A to Z.